welcome to BCC Virtual Racing, and tonight's race, hosted by the Glasgow Green Cycle Club, is Chasing the Sun on Makuri Islands, 31.5 kilometres long for the category A, B and C, and a little bit shorter for Cat D, 23.6. So this is race 3 in the BCC League. Next race is on Thursday. 36 seconds to go until the start. A large field this evening. Last time I looked, about 115 riders, of which about 25%, 20, 21, 22 from BCC. Now, unfortunately, I'm starting in category E, so I can't see anyone at the moment. But as soon as the race gets underway, I shall grab the first rider I see and continue from there. Course a little bit lumpy and bumpy. The largest hill comes in at about 19 kilometres, 2.5 kilometres long, and a gradient of 3.6%. Now the race is underway for Cat A, just leaving the pen now. Staggered start, 1 minute intervals, as is typical with GGCC. And there's some of the riders. New rider I've got on screen here, James S. I don't know what your surname is, S, but I will find out. But a collection of B riders, I think around 12, 13 last time I looked. So they shall be off very shortly. And riders just coming off the turbos now, waiting for that start, and then they'll start to wind it up just a few seconds before the gun goes off. And a number of these riders completed in the Windsor Hill climb yesterday. There is category B now underway with James at 352 watts. As I was saying, a number of those riders competed in the hill climb yesterday on the road, not virtually. I'll come back to that a little bit later on. We'll just watch these riders get underway. One lap of this course in the Makuri Islands in Japan is the longest course on the islands, introduced in February, I think, this year. And here we are, 6 seconds in for Cat B, and I'm just, while they get underway, just have a quick look in Cat A, see if we've got any riders from BCC in there. No, I can't see any, but not unusual for 1 or 2 to pop up that I may have missed. But there's Oliver White, 309 watts, heart up at 160 beats per minute. Bunch all fairly much together at the moment. There's Sandy Thompson from GGCC. They are hosts for this evening. Campbell, and I just saw Quebrada, Empson, Davis. There's Davis, should be commended for his attempt at the hill climb yesterday. I think finished in 2 minutes 3 seconds, which is not at all bad for a man of his age. Also in the field tonight, I haven't seen him, but at least entered, is Lancia, who finished 3 seconds after Davis, which, to be honest, he is a big unit. Hill climbing might not be his thing, but I'd be a little bit embarrassed. Davis, I think technically at least, is old enough to be his father, so a bit more effort, Lancia, but nice to see, in the racing at least, he is beginning to beat Davis. So is this the start of a decline for Davis? I doubt it. He's got a lot left in him at the moment. There is Quebrada, 211 watts, taking that fairly comfortably at the moment. Heart up at 163 and 1.1 kilometres underway. Finished, I should say, completed. There's Watts, Al Watts, quite wise in Cat C. I'll never quite understand, but there he is. I have seen him racing in many of a time trial in category B, but of course, to be fair, like many of us, if you don't keep on training, it's quite easy to drop back. And I just saw, there he is, my nephew, somewhere, Smith. Lost him again. But nice to see he's now in category C, along with M. Jury, Mark. Katie's also riding this evening. Nice, I think I saw her there, and she, I think, was the first lady in the hill climb, to be confirmed. Langan, Shannon, 212, 214, 152 in the heart for him. Not at all bad. There's Tom Hall, 141 at his age. He could be pushing harder, but he is sitting smartly in the middle of that peloton. And I keep seeing riders I want to click on, but they're all moving fairly quickly and it's hard to grab hold of them. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Just looking a little bit further back in the field, there's Smith. Now that's Watts. Smith's right next to him. Now what's he doing? 306 watts, 165 on the heart. So he is pushing. Recently promoted to Cat C, and he of course is facing the challenge that we all do at this particular stage. Do well in the category below, then get promoted and don't do as well anymore. Suddenly pushed further down the field, but that's a challenge everyone has to contend with. And I'm just going to have a quick look and make sure this is recording before I continue to commentate for the whole race. Langan Jury just moving back through the field. There's Sampson. He's been riding well, although this is only the third race of the BCC League. Next race Thursday evening, the Beaconsfield Cricket Club, and races alternate between the GGCC on a Monday evening and the Beaconsfield Cricket Club on a Thursday, both at about 10 past 8. Right, let's just actively move back through the field just to see if we picked up any entries I haven't seen. There's Carmel Lord, a very regular Cat D rider, and she should be commended for her efforts in the hill climb yesterday. Had the honour, I think it's an honour, or the dubious honour of leading the entire field off first, so at least she got it over with quickly, so well done for that ride. Right, let's move straight back up to the very front of the field, see what's happening. No riders from BCC in Cat A that I have managed to see flicking by on the screen. Into Cat B now. Empson on the way past. There's Lancia. Just pause here for a moment. Katie Jury, I think, just behind him. And does that Lancia have a bit of a... trying to pull away? Is that him? Someone's on fire there. Just looking back, there is Jury behind. And the first of the Cat A's. And don't forget in this, as the riders started at 1 minute intervals, the times that you see on the screen will reflect that. So what we're really looking for are the gaps closing to under a minute, indicating that one group is catching up with the other. Anyway, let's just watch, I think we'll go back to Cat B and watch them for a minute or two, see what's happening. If Zwift lets me do it. And the results it's giving there, 10th, 8th, etc. on the right hand side of your screen. It's the results in that category. Now here we are, Cat B. So Campbell seems to be off the back a little bit. That's Quebrada in front of him. And White as well, looking forward. Let's have a look. Yes, so Campbell can see in front of him Quebrada and White. Quite sure what happened there. Is that gap closing? Campbell certainly pushing on. Hart at 149, but that's fairly typical of him. He's not one of those riders where the heartbeat goes way up on the scale, and in fact he has closed that gap. Great effort from him, so maybe the three of these riders will ride together. So White, Quebrada and Campbell, and White actually has come on quite a bit since he started racing. In fact, Campbell doesn't decide to ride with him, goes straight past and opens up a gap. The others are responding. In fact, White chooses to use a power up to get back on Campbell's wheel. That could be a good choice. Quebrada responds as well at 4.5 watts per kilo. So that may just have been Campbell catching up with a little bit too much power, going past and then relaxing. Well, relaxing is the wrong word, but coming back off the par. Martin Wales. Now he is some 21 seconds ahead of Campbell, White and Quebrada. And moving further up the field, let's see if we can... There's Thompson from GGCC, who is 22 seconds ahead of Campbell. Normally around Thompson is Davis at this stage, but 8 seconds further up we have... This looks to be the head of the race. Seems to be Empson, Gary Empson, along with Scott Rowland, Barry Davis, Jacques Poiret, Katie Jury in there, and Sam Lancier. They are now at 6.1 kilometres, 8 minutes, 59 seconds into this race. I don't think much will happen. It's quite a windy and twisty course, as you can see on the moving map in the top right of the screen, but I don't think much will happen until we get to the hill at around 19 kilometres. And the interesting thing about that hill, 2.5k long, as I've said, 3.6% average gradient, is once at the top, it's it's a roughly 10k to the finish, 10, 11, maybe 12k to the finish, but most of that is downhill. So I think that's where the decisive moves could come in. So we pay to get to the top of that hill first, take advantage of the downhill, and then just drive on to the finish. Only one lap and at 35.1k, except for our one Category D rider, Carmel Lord, who's completing that completing a distance of 23.6 kilometres, so 6% gradient here. So this is a total of, I think I said, 316 metres, 279 metres, depending on which source you take that information from, but let's say around 300 metres of climbing. Most of it is up and down, not large climbs, except the KOM climb at around kilometre 19. So coming up for 7 kilometres, 92 metres of climbing completed. There's one of the sprint banners, but I don't think many riders will be going for that. And that's still Jury on screen. There is Lancia, 162 in the heart. Cruising along, 81 watts. Stop pedalling just for a moment. And here is... Oh, he's just moved. I was just going to say here is Davis. Well, there's Poiret. Well, I've got him now. Something's happening there which I hadn't spotted. He is off the back of that group. So that will be, in my mind, with Category B's, probably Group 3 by the looks of it. But he is next to, or just behind, Scott Rowland. Rowland at 3 watts per kilo, Poiret 2.1, 2.2. James S. Empson, Wales, about 8 seconds further back. Might just be able to see them as the road bends in the right direction. Not yet. So that is Poiret now getting distance from Rowland, and in fact Empson, Wales in this group. Sandy Thompson from GGCC are gaining on Ware. I'm not sure if they're gaining on Roland, but they're certainly gaining on Ware. That gap will close shortly. And behind this group, a further 57 seconds further back. That's quite a big gap for Campbell and White and Quebrada. The three of them still together, working with each other now. And we'll have a look in category C, see what's going on. Looks to be being led by Shannon at the moment. 167 on the heart, so he's pushing pretty hard. Can't see any other BCC riders around him. Mark Jury is in there, just behind actually. So is Smith. He'll do well to hold on to this group. In fact, he is 8 seconds behind Jury. And just out of interest, 32 seconds behind Roland and Ware in the category above. So Cat C is closing on the rear end of Cat B, which is impressive. That's Smith up to 171 on the heart. A young man, but nonetheless, that's still getting up there. There's Dave Sampson riding quite nicely. Good steady pace working with Smith. And behind them, let's see, about, looks like 56 seconds further back, Tom Langen being distanced by everyone really by the looks of it. Tom Hall is just behind him catching up, but 4 seconds behind at this stage, and they are at 7.2 kilometers into this race. Al Watts a further 25 seconds further back at 7 kilometers. And I will move forward in the field now. We'll have a quick look actually. Before we do that, let's just finish off. Now, Zwift has taken me to the front of the field, whether I wanted to or not. But just to have a look, well, that is the leading rider. Just trying to get a distance comparison, 11 kilometers. And by comparison, White, Quebrada and Campbell at 9.5 kilometers. And the front of, I saw Empson there just for a moment. Where was he? There he is at 10.6. Wales, Thompson, 10.6 in this group as well. No sign of Lancia and Davis. In fact, there's Davis. Having said that, 11.1. So this is Group 1 of Cat B. Jury's in there as well. Lancia is there, tucking in with Davis. I fancy, let's see, as a prediction, I think Lancia, I think I'll put my money on him as it comes up towards the finish, although that hill towards the end may finish him off a little bit. But he's got a good, strong sprint. So tactically, this group of riders just rotating around. No one pushing off the front just yet, a little bit early. So this is the front group. This now is the second group in category B. Roland, James S. Empson is in there as well. I thought he was in the front group. And Ware. They're at 11.6, and as I could see Carmel there, just as a comparison, 6.3 kilometers into this race, 124 watts pushing, very reasonably hard though, 160 on the heart. And let's check out category C. Looks to be Shannon still up front. If I can click on it, there he is at 11 kilometers. So about a kilometre behind now the very front runners. Now, has Shannon distanced any of his fellow BCC riders? Let's have a look. Yeah, I think he has by the looks of it. The next bunch of BCC riders, here we have Jury on screen, are around 45 seconds further back. So if that is correct, that's a great performance from Shannon. Smith hanging in there as well. 3 watts per kilo, 10.8 kilometers, 16 minutes into this Chasing the Sun race. And behind, I'm just trying to see the gap between, can't see it on screen, might just get it if it lets me scroll down. Jury and Langen is about a minute. And then Al Watts a further 36 seconds back at 9.8 kilometers, 148 watts. And the roads look quite wet there this evening. So, back up now to the front of the field. Just want to make certain I catch the riders going up that hill. Just having a quick check, make sure everything's still recording properly. Seems to be. Right, here we have the front of Cat B. Jury, Lancia, Davis. What is Jury doing? 3.8 watts per kilo. Lancia 3.8. Davis very similar. Moving up and down, of course, at this stage. Fairly flat part of the course. Coming up for 20 minutes and 14 kilometers into this ride. Davis sitting comfortably in the pack, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he may well have completed over 400 races, or it must be about that on Zwift. So certainly probably the most experienced rider that we have in the club, in a virtual sense, that turns up for these races. There are others that use Zwift frequently but don't actually race. So these three, Jury, Davis, Lancia, all sitting in that front bunch. And then behind we have James S., Scott Rowland, Martin Wales, and I think Gary Empson's in that group as well. Is that him there? That's him there. 14.2 kilometres, as is Sandy Thompson, not forgetting our host. Neil Campbell now is 1 minute 17 further back, along with Quebrada and White. I think that's correct. I've lost Quebrada, I'm sure I just saw him. Oh, Juarez further up the course as well. So the groups have definitely settled. The gaps between these groups, I can't see anyone jumping from one group to the other and catching a break of that nature. But there are places to be won. Certainly the first three riders in Cat B may well be going for first, second and third, of course, but there are points to be had for the next, I think, up to 10th place, if I'm not mistaken, and that will come from the second group. And some of the dirt and gravel, 14.1 kilometres. Campbell, a fairly consistent heart rate, up at operating temperature is one way of describing it. And here we are, 15.4k up at the front. Still the same three protagonists, Jury, Shannon and, sorry, not Shannon, Jury, Lancia and Davis. I think Shannon would be delighted to be up the front of this group. And is there anyone behind? Let's have a look. Can't see anyone, not on this bend anyway. It's a fairly winding course for quite a bit yet. And for those of you that haven't yet tried the racing, please do give it a go. It's good fun. It's certainly more fun for me commentating than it is riding, but I have done plenty of racing as well. But a great way to get involved, and certainly boosts the fitness over the winter months. And of course you can race within your own category. And it doesn't really matter where you come, but you'll find it can be quite motivational. .3 kilometres now for this lead collection of Cat B riders. Ware in Wales 20 seconds further back, along with Empson, Rowland, Thompson from GGCC. The C riders have begun to overtake the rear of the BF. Sorry, I'll say that again. The C riders have begun to overtake the rear of the B field. Let's see what's happening now. There is White. Where are the other B riders he was with? I think further up. No. Just trying to find them. Is it what? Is it White? In fact, that has gone ahead. Don't think so. It's waiting for Zwift to update itself. See Langan, Hall, Smith, the other jury, Mark. Al Watts, there he is at 13.7k. It's about, here we go, there's Carmel, 10.8, another 13k for her roughly to go. Right, let's get back to the front so we can see what's happening as the riders approach the KOM. And here we are at the front, 17.7 kilometres. There's an incline coming. I'm not sure if that is the start of the climb. It could be. It's certainly beginning to steepen. Davis, Lance here. Let's see what happens. Let's just sit on Davis as on Lance here, as he is between Jury and Davis at the moment. 18k, there is the hill ahead. That certainly looks like it on the profile top right of your screen. No other riders behind. Lance here leading both Jury and Davis at the moment, but that's just a case of sitting the bunch. Someone's out with their power up already. Looks as if it drops back down again in a couple of 100 metres. But the climb is coming. Davis at 4.6 watts, 5.5 watts per kilo. Slight relief now as the road turns downwards. 26 minutes into this race, 18.4 kilometres, riding at 40 kilometres per hour, so fairly moving along. Just stay with this group until about 19.5 kilometres. By then I think the hill must be there, unless I read it incorrectly. but not on a downhill at the moment. No one taking advantage. This would be a good place to attack, actually, if the riders have a good idea of what's coming next on the course. But they may well just be using the opportunity to recover, knowing what is coming. But for a brave rider, it's a good place to start off. And here comes the hill at 19 kilometers, up at 4% already. Power going up, over 4 watts per kilo for all of these riders. Have a little look, and just behind, let's see what's happening in Group 2. There's James S., Scott Rowland, Martin Wales. Empson in there as well. They are all at 19k. Let's see how the riders are doing at the front. Has anything happened? Still at 3%. It does average 3.6%, so there are going to be some flat bits and some steeper bits. But all pretty much the same at the moment. So from this group of Davis, Jury and Lancier, next back, 26 seconds further back, Thompson, GGCC and Martin Wales, along with Ware. Missed him there. Martin Wales, Empson, now I'm trying to work out what is going on with Quebrada and Co. I haven't seen them for a while. I'm sure they're still in there. White is still there. I just saw Quebrada. There he is. So now that it was Quebrada, White. Now that Quebrada and White are still together. And they've just been consumed by a group of faster C's. Campbell's in here as well, so missed some coming together of the group. Looks as if Shannon, no, this is interesting. So Shannon was right up the front of Cat C. It looks now as if he's dropped off, not been able to hold on to the pace of that leading group, and he's now 2 minutes ahead of chasing group. That is quite a big gap between here and the end, but entirely possible with that group working together. And that group at the moment includes Jury, Sampson and Smith. And if they think about it and realise Shannon is up there, about 800 metres ahead, certainly possible to catch. Anyway, back to Quebrada, White, Campbell. They'll all be feeling a little bit better, sitting in a larger group. Right, and here we have the Empson, Ware, Thompson, Wales, James S., Scott Rowland, just missed him there, but there he is somewhere. There he is, all in Group 2. And then still, if I can get up to the front, there is Davis, I just saw him, there's Lancier at 21.2 kilometres. So about 500 metres ahead of the chasing group. Still going up this climb at 4%, Lancier, Davis, still there. I'm assuming Jury is. I'd be surprised if she wasn't. There she is, in fact. 21.4k. and continues to climb 3 to 4%. And it's still between Jury, Davis and Lancia. I don't think the gap, let's see what the gap is, 38 seconds to the group behind. I'll see if I can remember that and see if that group is closing over the remaining 13k or so of this race. 36.1 kilometers in total. And there we are, there's the average going 9%, 6% at 21.8k. Has that made any difference? No, still sticking together. You can just see Lord 9 minutes further back as an indicator, 14.8 kilometers. So a big difference in speed. But this is all about racing within your category. So the gap to, I'm just looking at the gap back to the second of the Gap B groups, and that gap is widening up to 40 seconds now from the front group of Davis, Jury, Lancia, and looks as if something's happening here as well. Let's just, is Roland, in fact Roland has made a bit of a break away from that group he was in. Good strong rider. You could see the rest of the group strung out behind, but that's about a 6-second gap already. And by comparison, he's 42 seconds behind Davis and Co. So that gap is still widening. But Roland now 7 seconds ahead of Wales, James S, Jacques Ware, and Empson has looks as if he's been suffering in the hills a bit. One of the older riders, he won't mind me saying, he might, but does exceptionally well. 21.9k, so he can see ahead of him. You can see, in fact, those riders he can see are in fact Ware, James S and Martin Wales. May all come back together, but he's on that steep dirt track which doesn't really make it easy at all. Let's see how Campbell's doing on the hill. 21.8k. Hart's gone up to 155, so he's pushing hard up here. White is 6 seconds further back. So if you recall at the start of the race, Campbell was a long way behind White Quebrada, but now it's the other way around. I'm not sure what happened to Campbell at the start. May have just dropped off a wheel and has had to work quite hard to get back up here. So there's White, 6 seconds behind Campbell in that group ahead of him, but behind him, just coming into view there, is Quebrada, who's a further 7 seconds further back. There's a mountain biker just overtaken him. That's a bit embarrassing, but never mind. It might be more suited to a mountain bike. And then in Cat C, Shannon is he leading the field? 20, not quite. He's about 400 meters behind the leading Cat C riders and about 35 seconds behind Quebrada, so he's doing rather nicely. But he is a remarkable 138 ahead of Mark Jury, Dave Sampson and Jamie Smith, who now are at 21.1 kilometers as opposed to Shannon's 21.7. Now on the steep part of the course. Moving forward, just want to check and make sure something interesting hasn't been going on while I've been further back. Now Davis 2 seconds behind Lancia on this climb. That's nothing to worry about. Speed is 25k per hour at 9% gradient, so that's pretty quick actually. At 410 watts Davis up to 175 on the heartbeat, 5.3 watts per kilo. So he is pushing it. By comparison, Lancia similar power, watts per kilo, I should say. Hart at 180. So numbers from both riders very similar. Lancia is the taller, larger rider. Well, it's certainly not true for Katie. He's one of the smaller riders, holding in terms of power very similar. $23.5K. "38 minutes into this ride, some relief now over this flatter section." And then I think if I remember correctly, it becomes pretty much downhill all the way to the finish. So these riders have just passed the KOM banner. Now, are they going to take advantage of this? No one did over the top, over the crest of that KOM hill. It's possible it could happen now. Davis 3.9 watts per kilo, Lancia 5.2, still all together. Now, what's happened to Roland? So he is, let's see, looks to be about a 45-second gap between Roland and the front runners in Cat B, and he has increased his gap from the following riders, Thompson and Martin Wales on screen now, but they in turn have pulled away from, in fact it's beginning to split up. I was going to say they have in turn pulled away from, but it's only a single rider, James S, but he has moved away from Ware by some 25 seconds. He's now with Empson. And they are 33 seconds ahead of Campbell, who looks to have suffered a bit on that climb, not surprising. But he in turn is 28 seconds ahead of White. So it's all shifting around. White sees that mountain biker up front. In fact, Quebrada seems to be suffering. He's dropped even further back now, 59 a minute behind White. Was riding well with him earlier on. In fact, Quebrada is now only 14 seconds behind Shannon. And Shannon probably has him in his sights. Can we see them? In fact, that is Quebrada just going out of the screen top left corner. And Shannon is maintaining his gap ahead of the chasing C riders. That's Sampson on screen now, who is 3 seconds ahead of Jury, who in turn is 2 seconds ahead of Smith. Perhaps it's because he hasn't got a helmet on. And he's got a non-aerodynamic hat. Not to be left out, Tom Hall and Tom Langen, both together, 29 seconds further back. So they've done, certainly Langen's done enough racing. I'd expect him to be further up. Tom Hall certainly done plenty, but not as much perhaps as some of the others. I haven't looked up the statistics recently. But further back, Al Watts, now at 21.3k, he's 40 minutes in. And Lord is at 18 kilometres. So she's got 5k left to go. And let's move up to the front of the field. I think this is the front of the field. Should be. When Zwift sorts itself out, it will let us know. There we go. First of 13. That's first of 13 riders in Category A. And don't forget, just as a reminder, these riders all started in the different categories 1 minute apart. And Cat D has the slightly shorter course. So Lancia, Jury, and Davis. Miss Davis there. There's Davis sitting up the front. He's thinking of something. 27.1k. 8k left. Downhill. Now this will suit the larger riders. Lancia in particular. And it's not just height and size. There is a aerodynamic advantage. Not at particularly a huge advantage at 1.2 watts or 1.0 watts per kilo, but if they decide to push on in this sort of -10, anyone in a super tuck, let's have a look. Good opportunity to recover slightly. No, it's the gradient's too shallow now. As I was saying, certainly on the flat conditions like this is where Lancia really could take advantage. And push ahead from Davis and Jury, in particular Jury, one of the smaller riders. This is not a comment on strength or capability, it's just a larger rider on the flat. It's all got to do with power, weight, surface area. They have an advantage even at the same watts per kilo, as if they're riding at the same watts per kilo as a smaller rider who may be right next to them. So if Lancia is thinking about it, now is the time to do it. Davis probably has thought about it, but has decided not to do it. But I think with 400 races under his belt, he probably knows what he's doing. So second group, let's see what's happening. Yeah, so Rowland along with Thompson from GGCC. He's not closing the gap. Gaps remaining similar to the front runners. And his gap similar again to the group behind Wales. And a small gap back to then James S, who can see Wales now on the screen just ahead of him. But a much bigger gap back to Ware and Empson, 32 seconds further back. Campbell a further 40 seconds behind them. And White a further minute back. Quebrada 140 back. Now, this is a gap we were looking at earlier. It was, I think, last time I mentioned it, about 15 seconds between Quebrada and Shannon. That's now closed to 11. So, although Shannon did not keep up with the very front of Group C, he is leading the rest of the bunch by quite a margin and closing the gap down to 10 seconds now with Quebrada, who's at 1.9, 2.1 watts per kilo. And what's the gradient? -6 for him, -7. So he's not taking advantage of that downhill. He is resting. So this could be an opportunity for Shannon as he gets into this downhill section. If he gives a kick right now, and is he? No, he's holding a similar power. I think he would close that gap by the bottom of the hill. But that's his choice, of course. Further, 1 minute 30 back, we have Dave Sampson, Mark Jury, and Jamie Smith still getting a slightly distanced. And that gap is widening. But he is maintaining his advantage over Hall, who is a further 115 back, and Langen a further 120 back. Right, let's not forget the front of this race. Just have to scroll up. It's the only way to do it on Zwift, I'm afraid. Right, there is the leading A rider. It will sort itself out, the display, in a second. There's Jury up the front of the leading bunch of B riders. Davis and Lancia there as well. 5k left to go in this Chasing the Sun crit race on Makuri Islands in Japan. Coming up for 47 minutes. It will be under the hour. Flat bit of the course here. And the course finishes at the same place it started in the harbour. Nyokio Harbour, I think it is. So these riders will now all be thinking about the remaining 4 kilometres. Is it 31.2 they're at? 35.1 is the finish. 4k left to go. 4,000 metres, that's all it is. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it is when you've been racing for 48 minutes. And pushing to stay at the front of this group of B riders. So I said earlier, if it came down to these 3 riders being there at the finish, I'm going for Lancia on the sprint. He's in a good position to do so. Jury's doing well. She's got a good sprint on her as well, so possibly a second. Could be Lancia, Jury, Davis, might be my vote at the moment. But anything can happen. Let's see, Jury is sitting in 4th place, 5th. Right in the middle of that bunch. Someone's going off the front. 8.7 watts. That's Magnussen from Norway. Decided to make a go of it. Now that's certainly shaken them all up. Wattage jumps up for all these riders. Jury, Davis, Lancia, probably content. That's the 3 of them on screen now. So it's broken into 2 groups. Someone else joining them. These 3 riders, though, from BCC, probably content to battle it out with each other. I think they are not so worried about the win overall on Cat B, but they are worried about the win for the league. And there's, what happened there? Was that the finish? I think it was. I didn't even see who finished. Sorry about that. Thought there was another 1 kilometre to go. No, it can't be the finish. Or was that the sprint banner? That was the sprint banner. $33k. Jury has the green jersey. I can't work out whether this is finished or not. If it has, the heartbeat's still up there. Well, Zwift tells me it's 35k race and they've only done 33.3. No, I think it must have been for the sprint. So what's happening? So these riders are backing off somewhat from 8-9 watts per kilo just a moment ago down to 2.7. Just have a quick look at behind. Just want to check. Roland at 32.1. Certainly not going to catch the leading group from here unless a disaster occurs. And here we come now. Definitely the racing is still on. I think that was just all the confetti and thumbs up arriving for the sprint banner that got me a bit confused. 34k. Just over 1 kilometre to go in this category B race. Davis, Lancia, Jury all still together. Jury has a little bit of a gap there. Not much. Should be holding that relatively comfortably at 209 watts. It's all going to come down to who goes first. So, I'm going to sit on Lancia. As we can see, Jury up in front and Davis as well. Bunch coming back together, 34.4k. Now these riders will have on the screen the distance to the finish. I can't unfortunately see that other than what's written down on the entry. But the finish banner should appear on the moving map. Now here we go, 8.6 watts per kilo from Davis, but Lancia up at 10.5. Jury kicks as well, and it looks to be Lancia. Davis at the moment. No, Davis is in the front. Lancia second. Jury is third. It's switching around. Davis is still holding off. Lancia is making a strong charge here. Is he going to get past Davis? Yes, he does, right on the finish. What a superb line from Lancia, followed by Davis and then Jury. So I got the Lancia right. Other two switched around. So let's quickly move back through the field, see if we can catch. I've only got about 30 seconds to do this. If it lets me, it won't let me. Right, I have to go back to the start. There's Roland. That's who I was hoping to catch. So Roland is going to come across the line next, by the looks of it. And what I'm really looking for is another sprint now. Thompson is sitting right behind him. Not a BCC rider, of course, but as the host of the GGCC series, certainly deserves a mention or two. So we'll just see these two come up to the finish line. It's 34 kilometers, 1k to go, approximately. No threat from any BCC rider. So Roland is going to take, subject to confirmation from the stewards, of course, 4th place in this race. Riders ahead kicking already. 9.8, 10 watts per kilo. Roland sitting there at 3.3, but he is about 600 meters behind those riders that have just put the sprint in. So if he's going to do it, he'll probably wait a moment or two. But Thompson just marking him. There's Roland up out of the saddle, just pushing on a little bit. But no response yet. 34.7 kilometers, 55 minutes. And then we'll go back to the group behind. There is the sprint. And who's it going to be? Roland, I think, by the looks of it. Roland at 9.3 watts per kilo. Oh, Thompson at 13.3 just gets Roland on the line by the looks of it. Now, coming up next. Missed them. Gone. There. These riders, Wales and James S. Who's it going to be? James S. 8.8 watts per kilo. Wales is not responding, but he is ahead. At the moment, Wales is going to cross the line first, then James. And then next up we have Ware and Empson, as they come round the bend now. That's not helpful. There's the finish line in the distance. Who is going to respond first? Ware, I think I might give him the odds here. But neither are responding. In fact, riders in front and behind them are going now. Ware responds, moves immediately ahead of Empson, who's sort of stopped pedaling there for a moment, I think. And that's a convincing win from Ware. Next up we have Campbell. He's always good for a sprint, 10 watts per kilo. Let him cross the line, no other BCC riders. And I saw White there. Now what I want to know is, just looking at the gap between White and Shannon. I'm sure that was 11 seconds earlier. But anyway, White and Quebrada. Now it's all changing around. I don't know what it's doing. Anyway, White is next to cross the line. road turns right, and then as it begins to go around the very long left-hand bend, White will see the finish arch in the distance, and at that point I will move back through the field. $34.3k, and I am wondering, just looking further back, what's happened with Quebrada and Shannon. The gap's now 1:22 when I'm convinced, I think it was 11 seconds before. But certainly White and Quebrada did ride much of the first half of this race together, and now White is 1:59 ahead, and I'm sure White, if I remember correctly, started in Cat D and has worked his way up, so he's doing quite nicely. Finish line should come into view now. There it is, and I'll let White cross the line. No one's going to catch him. In fact, with a quick look, Quebrada at 33.6. Unlikely anyone's going to catch him, so we'll let him cross the line. Have a look at the action in Cat C. Now, we have Shannon out in front of the BCC crowd. Seems to be just looking for the gap. Shannon's gone off screen. 1:13 ahead of Mark Dury, Jamie Smith, Dave Sampson. It looks as if those three have ridden well together and stayed together quite a long time, actually. So Shannon at 5.4 watts per kilo, 1 kilometre to go. No, 2 kilometres to go, sorry. Yes, about 2k to go. Not yet back in the harbour area. 58 minutes will be over the hour. So although a crit race, they're normally quite short, 1 hour of this type of racing is hard. No one behind Shannon on that view, just these two riders in front. 34k, so while he pushes on towards the finish, have a quick look, see if Quebrada will catch him crossing the finish. There, he can see the finish line. Would be nice to get him crossing that line, so we'll stay with him until the finish. And there he is. Is he going to put a little sprint in? No, he's just going to cruise across the finish line in a time of just over the hour. So back to Cat C now. I think that should be all of the Cat Bs finished. Shannon, 34.5 kilometres over the hour for him. 148 watts. He knows there's no one ahead, no one behind. Though I think he's deliberately easing off here. Wants to stay behind these riders just in front of him. He might well kick in for a bit of a sprint. They have wound it up a little bit though, and Shannon is responding. Is he going to rush the gap now? That will still have an effect on Zwift. That front rider, Offsty, I think it was, if I saw that correctly. But Shannon, the wily competitor, has the power up. Is it going to give him enough, though, to catch those riders? Nope, it is not. So, next, Cat C. Dury, Sampson. There is Sampson. And Smith. So anyone on a Tron bike? Looks like Dury's on a Tron bike. probably the best one for this. But Smith fancies himself here. Look, he's pushing ahead of Jury. Jury, I'm sure, has raced in Cat B before. But no, Sampson has got a good kick on him. I've seen him do this sort of thing before. He fancies it. Or is it just that the others have backed off? It's hard to tell, but a little bit early for an all-out sprint. But no, I would be right though. Sampson's going for it. Smith's in the front at 10.1 watts per kilo. Smith's holding off Sampson and Jury. Smith's going to cross the line first, followed by Sampson, then Jury. So good sprint from Smith there. That was nicely done. Right. Get back to me on the start. And then up to the front. In fact, I just saw Lord there. Has she... Can I catch her? Can't seem to. Let's see who we've got from there. BCC still in the race. This seems to be the front. Tom Hall at 34k. 1 hour 2 minutes. He was with Tom Langen, who is now 4 minutes 23 back. That doesn't seem believable when 10 minutes ago they were together. That could just be the way Zwift's reporting. It sometimes does these odd things. But anyway, at the moment at least, Tom Hall is at 34.3k, 1 hour 3 minutes in. And Tom Langen is 4 minutes 28 back at 31.6k. If Al Watts fancies a bit of a push, he could catch up with Langen. I have no doubt about that in the 5k that he has left to go. Although it would be one huge effort. So rather than go through every rider, let's just have a look at what the finishing order is now likely to be. Tom Hall now sees the finish line ahead of him at 34.8 kilometres. As he rounds the corner, will he put in a bit of a push just for the end? He may well do. He does briefly. 5.9 watts per kilo. That's it for him. He's content with that. Crossing the line in about 1 minute 4 and 30 seconds. His namesake is now 4 minutes further back at 32.3. So we won't follow all of these riders through, trying to keep the video a little bit short. But next will definitely be Tom Langen. And in Cat C, and the fact the final BCC rider of Mr. Carmel Lord finishing there will be Al Watts, who currently is at 31.4 kilometres. So we'll finish the broadcast there for this evening. Thank you all for watching. Next race, of course, is on Thursday evening, Beaconsfield Cricket Club. Thanks for watching. See you all there.